I am the curator of art and history education at the Illinois State Museum. I want to thank you for joining us tonight for the Preston Community Garden program. Just a few housekeeping things as we get started. Please use the Q&A feature for questions. You are also welcome to use the chat to converse with the panelists or with the attendees. The chat default is hosts and panelists, so if you'd like everyone to see your comments, you can select everyone from the drop-down menu. You can view the automatic captions by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of your screen. And if you do have any technical difficulties during the program, please reach out to me in the chat and I'll do my best to help you. Our speaker tonight is Patrice Preston Rogers. Patrice and her work at the Community Garden are featured in our current ISM exhibition, Edgewise, Finding a Voice in a World Made for Men, which features Illinois women and gender minorities who have worked to make a difference in their communities. So I'd like to thank Patrice for sharing her story with us tonight and go ahead and turn it over to her for tonight's program.
Thank you so much for having me. So I created Preston Community Garden after the death of my father, who suffered from high cholesterol, hypertension, just other dietary issues from living in the food desert. And I just wanted to do something productive and beneficial with the land. And just because you have the ability to drive maybe 20 minutes away, you shouldn't have to. It's certain things that should be necessary in a neighborhood. So when I inherited this land, once my dad passed, I wanted to make sure that if I sold it, I didn't know who would get it. And I didn't want anything that, or a business that would be detrimental to the community. East St. Louis doesn't need a payday loan place or something that was predatory, another liquor store. And something that's always bothered me in many disadvantaged neighborhoods was the quality of the produce. A lot of places that are in grocery stores that are in disadvantaged neighborhoods do not have the same quality of food. The produce looks almost rotten. So that's something that's always bothered me. So I wanted to do something productive that can benefit the residents in East St. Louis. And I couldn't think of a better way to use the land than a community garden. And not only the nutritional benefit, I wanted to use the space for to create a beautiful safe space. Everyone does not have a safe space at home. So that's what was important to me. And what is really cool for those that have came to the garden is such a diverse group. So the community cohesion of the garden. And we have raised beds. So if you have back problems or you're in a wheelchair, it's no reason that you cannot come to Preston Community Garden and not enjoy gardening. And we also know it's an outdoor classroom. We know children learn different. So we also have a children's garden. Of course, it's great environmental science there, but also it teaches team building, and it's just very therapeutic. So we're hoping the end result of our garden, of course, food sustainability, but also, we're hoping that we'll see obesity rates drop. And also crime drop because you're giving people something productive to do. So that's the goal of our garden, but it's really a feeling of being there. It's so peaceful. So like I said, the nutritional benefit of the garden is definitely a plus. But another future thing we're looking to do is have a sensory garden because like I said, we have an all-inclusive garden. So even the special needs our special needs residents. You know what, this is a non-judgmental place where, you know, if you need to make an outburst, if you need to run, no
Mhm.
one's judging. So, like I said, our goal of the garden is, of course, the nutritional benefit in a food desert, but also to create a beautiful therapeutic safe space.
It sounds like such a great project. I am wondering kind of if you could introduce yourself a little bit and your background and your history with the East St. Louis area, and just that might provide some context for this project too.
Absolutely. So, what's funny is, Elizabeth, my background is really banking. I worked at Wells Fargo for a long time. So if you would have said maybe 4 years ago that I would be a former East St. Louis, I would have saw maybe a straight jacket or mental institution in your future. I never saw myself doing this, but my ties to East St. Louis is my family moved to East St. Louis over 100 years ago when it was a thriving city. Before, if you couldn't get a job in East St. Louis, you couldn't get a job anywhere because it was a huge industrial town. But like a lot of cities, like Detroit, once those factories and companies leave, unfortunately, the city kind of changes. And knowing how I remember the city being when I used to visit my grandparents in the 70s and 80s, it was heartbreaking to see. And I know I'm just one person, but what can I do with this land to make a difference? So, and my dad loved East St. Louis. So even if I won Powerball, he would never have left. And I always think about, um, I just wanted to do right by him. And my dad had a huge heart. So people talk about me, but I got it honest. My dad was military, a Boy Scout, a high ranking Boy Scout. So he instilled community service in me and to make a difference. So, like I said, when I inherited this land, to me, a community garden just felt right to my soul.
That's great. So did you have a background in gardening, or like how did you get this project started?
So, what's really funny, uh, I grieved hard because I am the only child. So I did grieve hard when I lost my dad, but I left my TV on and I was running errands. And when I came back home, it was this show called Daily Mail, which is about current events. And one of the stories was about the Gangster Gardener, who's based out of South Central Los Angeles, which is another urban area. And he was speaking about how some places put shellac on produce. Shellac. And, you know, sometimes when you're cleaning your produce, you can feel that waxy film. So he was like, you know what? I'm going to grow my own. And he just took a small patch of land that went from maybe the end of his property to the sidewalk and started growing his own produce. And it almost became, um, it just became bigger and bigger. And so I was so intrigued with his story. And I was like, my goodness, if he could do that with a small patch of land, what can I do with this that I have in East St. Louis? And I said, I just have to know more about this gentleman because the only thing I know is that he's the Gangster Gardener. I don't even know his government name. So I went to the Google machine and I found out his name was Ron. My dad's name was Ron. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to make this happen. I have land with a big heart to make a positive impact. So it was during the pandemic. So I had nothing but time because everything was kind of shut down. And I started off doing the 501(c)(3), the nonprofit status. I did donor letters, built a website, and just took my letter and just spoke from the heart because I do. Everyone tells me what's great about your garden, you have a story behind it because of my dad. And I just spoke from my heart. I put my dad's dog tags on, and I would go to Home Depot and Lowe's and Walmart and Menards. And I would say probably within 15 minutes, Home Depot had contacted me saying they want to help. And it just became, we have a cult following now. And it's just so cool because at our garden is such a diverse group. Is people that probably paths would not normally cross at the garden, and they find common ground. So it's really cool to see that you might see a 5-year-old that lives probably 30 minutes away from the garden talking to maybe an 80-year-old grandmother who lives around the corner. So that's what's really cool to see, and just realizing that, hey, we do have a common ground. So that's, like I said, it's really a feeling. And that's something that Erica and Amanda have shared with me. They came to the garden and they were like, Patrice, I know it's been like a month since we've been to the garden, but it's a feeling that we can't describe. And that's what I want. I want, of course, like I said, the nutritional benefit. And with the astronomical food prices at this time, we're just looking to donate what we grow as long as it's not abused. Because before, when I started this, I was thinking that the community could kind of invest into garden beds, like, because sometimes you think when someone gets something for free, hey, I'll water it when I get to it, versus even if it's $10, they're invested in it. But right now we're in some challenging times. So really right now we're just looking to donate to the community.
That's great. And it's great that you have kind of a way to change maybe in the future when things get better and there's a different circumstance. And for those of you who are on, Erica and Amanda are our history curators and registrar who helped with the current exhibit Edgewise, and they've been down to the garden a couple of times. It sounds amazing. So I'm wondering what kinds of groups are involved in working at the garden. Do you have regular volunteers? Are there service groups who come out? Like, what are some of your partnerships and those groups that are involved in this project?
Oh my goodness. I get chills because, like I said, just to see this come into fruition has been amazing. Um, some of our partnerships are consistent partnerships. Operation Food Search. We have the Boy Scouts. We have R3, which is an amazing organization that teaches youth the skill of construction. So they have hosted an event. We just got a commitment from Worldwide Technologies. I'm not sure if you heard of them, but they're a pretty huge group in the St. Louis area. But they're coming out. They have committed to, I think, at least 6 garden days. Let me think who else. And each time that I go to my email, I think with the word of social media, we're getting more and more people by the day.
That's great. That's wonderful that you have some of those organizations that are coming out. Are you getting people just from the community that come out as well?
Yes. And I'm sorry I left out local churches. I should have said that. But what's really funny is we welcome everyone. It's no judgment. And we have local organizations, I should say, too, that might not be as well known, but they're definitely worth bringing up. But REC, which is Real Everyday Citizens, that's the acronym, and Empire 13. But anyway, so what's funny is when people drive by, you can see them kind of poking their head like, what's going on over there? And what I do, I make people get out the car. And I'm like, instead of me telling you, let me show you. And I want you to know it's yours. Our fence is very inviting. It's more for boundary reasons. It's not to keep anyone away because that defeats the purpose of a community garden. So we don't even have a lock on the fence. We just have a latch because I want the community to feel like it's theirs. And if I had a tall fence with an eye scan, it wouldn't be inviting. Like, what's over there you're trying to keep me away from? So when we do have people that drive by and I can see that they're looking pretty curious, I make them get out and I show them, and we get the teenagers, we get older people like, I didn't know what this was, but I let them know this is just not my garden. This is our garden. So I found that people are very protective of the garden.
That's great. So how do you distribute the produce? And I know it's just been a couple of years, but so far, how is that working with what you're growing?
You know what? So far, we have not sold one piece of produce. It's strictly donations. So what we're looking to do, and I'm supposed to have a meeting with the Boy Scout troop leader in East St. Louis. But we're looking to work with the Boy Scouts to distribute the produce. But last year, we're near a church. We gave a lot of produce to the seniors and also some of the seniors that lived in the lower income housing apartments. So that's what we did last year. But also another thing we're working on, partnering with Carrollton Bank and doing a summer youth program. So not only will we teach gardening, which is a great life skill, but we're looking to do a 4-week summer program where we talk about money management and different life skills to kind of help them in life, things that you need to know to be successful in life, and also have different people to talk about their careers and what it took to get there. Some might require college, but some might not, because you just never know what positive that you can expose the youth to, that they'll be like, oh, I could do that they didn't even know was possible. Just like the great, what Maya, her great saying, when you know better, you do better. And what we're looking to also do in the summer program, because I can give you produce, I can give you a tomato, but what are you going to do other than maybe hit your brother with it? So we want to also teach how to make things with minimum ingredients, like salsa, or we're growing strawberries this year. Maybe make some homemade ice cream. So we're really looking forward to hosting a summer program at the garden. So we're looking to do demonstrations. Like I said, when I was at the museum earlier, a lot of recipes that some people were raised on, after you finish adding things, it loses its nutritional benefit. Like, my grandmother used to make these delicious sweet potatoes. They were great, but they were tasty, but by the time she added her stick of butter and her brown sugar and her white sugar, it defeated the purpose. So also trying to change the mindset that you can make tasty foods without losing the nutritional benefit. So we're also looking to hold demonstrations at the garden regarding healthier eating.
That's great. I love that educational piece, and especially working with kids. That's wonderful, to get them when they're young and have them, get those life skills, but also just setting expectations for the rest of their lives. It's wonderful. And you, I guess I wanted to back up a second and just kind of talk about what kinds of produce are you growing? You mentioned strawberries and tomatoes, but what else do you produce throughout the year?
Oh my goodness. So what's cool about gardening? We have so many people with so many different gardening skills. You don't have to be an expert. So sometimes we'll try, and if it doesn't work, we learn and we do something different the following year. But what we have planted is a huge laundry list. So this is more considered kind of the cool weather produce. So we have a lot of greenery. So we have your spinach, your kale, your lettuce, your peppers. Like I said, we have strawberries. We even trying grapes. We don't know how they'll turn out, but it's worth it. So like I said, a lot of greenery. We have herbs. So your thyme, your parsley, things like that. We also planted a plum tree, a pecan tree, which I know that takes a while, but we also are trying to some more health, type plants. So and when I say that, we're planting witch hazel, we're planting hibiscus. So if you want to add that to, you can do some hibiscus tea. What else do we have? But so we're just trying a lot this year because we started in June planning, so we weren't able to get a lot of the earlier type produce. So we're just trying a little elderberry. I'm sorry, that was the one I couldn't think of. But we're just trying a little bit of everything this year, any type, not only produce, but wellness type items for the community.
That's great. I'm so glad you have the space to do some of those perennial crops that come back every year, like grapes and strawberry. I mean, you'll never get rid of the strawberries. I've had those in my garden, and once they're in, they're there for good. They take over. But yeah, that's wonderful that you're able to have that room for kind of some of the regular annual yearly crops, but also those things that like the trees that, I mean, it's going to take a while, but that's going to be a great investment when those get big enough to start producing. That's great that you have so much space for that. That's not always true in every, community garden spot.
So another thing I want to kind of piggyback on what you said, some places you just don't know where your food comes from. And we do spend a lot on our soil. We get our soil from St. Louis Composting, and we have a truck that brings the soil. And we were lucky enough to have a tractor at the garden. So it was easier to take the soil from the mound and put into the garden beds this year instead of everyone taking a wheelbarrow. And so it was a little easier this year and more enjoyable. But we do spend a nice amount on the soil, and you know where your food is coming from.
That's great. Are you composting on site as well as you go along?
Yes, so we do have a compost station that was donated to us. And oh my goodness, I almost forgot how great. I'm so sorry I did mention them. But we got our compost station from, it was formerly known as Gateway Greening, and they recently just changed the name to Seed St. Louis. And they have been a great resource to us. They're similar to having a a community garden mentor. They're like a community garden mentor to us. So if we ever have any questions, or, you know what, why didn't this grow? Or, you know what, I've seen some bugs here. How can I naturally get rid of these bugs? They, they have really been great to us, and they have donated the taller garden beds, the raised garden, like for, like I said, anyone like in a wheelchair or back problem. So Seed St. Louis has really been a tremendous help for us.
That's wonderful to have a partner that has that knowledge that can help you along the way, because gardening is one of those things that you just kind of have to stick the stuff in the soil and figure out what works. And when you have problems, crop up, yeah, it's great to have someone to go to and say,
Yeah.
yes, what is this bug? Is it good or is it not? And what do I do with it? That's wonderful. So you mentioned a sensory garden is in the plans for the future. What will that entail?
Oh my goodness. So we know that kids learn different. So we want them to enjoy all their senses. So another place that we have that has helped us is called Greenscape Gardens, and they plant. It's not ready yet because I asked. It's too soon right now, but they have a plant that smells exactly like popcorn.
Hmm.
So I was like, that would be really cool with the kids. But also, our children's garden is full of color. So it's not with the run of the mill. We have tires that we turned into little planters, and we painted them. It's really close to looking like tie dye, but just something that's just great for all your senses. Touching, smelling, it's just appealing to all your senses.
That's great. I love that. That wasn't what I was thinking of when I was thinking sensory garden. I was thinking of touching and things like that. But yeah, the smell is great as well. That's wonderful. Um, so what are some of your other plans for the future? You've got the sensory garden, and I think you mentioned when you were here at the museum some more like accessibility was in the future too.
Yeah, so we did get our raised beds. We are looking to get pathways. We're also looking to add a little art to the garden. So it's not just the run of the mill garden. We want the beautification of the garden. We just want it to be a great place. Like I said, everyone doesn't have a safe space at home. So if you just need a place to just kind of get away, if you need to meditate, pray, whatever you want to do, this is your safe space. Also, another thing, like I mentioned, we're looking to hold demonstrations. So we do have picnic tables and benches and things like that, but we're looking to have a pavilion that you can sit underneath. The summers get pretty humid, and if you just need a place to kind of get away from all the heat or the sun, you can kind of relax under the pavilion.
Great. Sounds like exciting things coming to in the future. So as you look back over the last couple of years and all that's gone on in the community garden, as you look to the future, like what are some of the lessons or the takeaways that you've come away with?
I still look at the garden, and it's hard for me to believe this was just an empty parking lot. And the community came together, and a lot of people we didn't even know that have became more like family with this project. Um, my takeaways, you know what my takeaway is, well, one person told me I think too small, and I thought I was thinking big. But if you have an idea, go with it. And everyone might not see your vision, and that's okay. Don't let that deter you, because everyone did not see when I mentioned a community garden and saw that parking lot. with broken glass. Some people didn't see it. But my takeaway is when you have that vision and it feels so strong, go for it. And even if you don't have the support, when you're doing what you're supposed to do, somehow it'll come together.
That's great. That's wonderful advice to those who have a dream. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted, what you just said kind of made me wonder. So, were there any other difficulties that you had to overcome? One of the themes in the exhibit is just, um, you know, making a difference in spite of the difficulties or obstacles. So, were there other obstacles and things that you've come up against that you've had to overcome over the last couple of years?
Don't take no personal,
Mm,
because you will have people that will not support, and that's okay. For those that do not support, you'll find 10 more that will support. So just staying optimistic and keeping your eye on your vision. But we did have obstacles. We did have people tell us no, or we did have people that said they were going to help, but end up not helping. And like I said, that's okay. Focus on the people that do want to help versus the ones that don't. Because sometimes if you let it, you'll focus more on, well, why did they help? Okay, well, they're not helping. Let me focus on the ones that are here. So I did run into a couple of obstacles, like I said, of people saying that they would help and those things fell through. And it was something bigger and better in store later on. Even like I said, even with the people that didn't help, something better came along.
yeah. I love that don't take no personally. I think I can imagine with a project like this that it is so personal. It started, with your dad and with this land, and it was, your dream and your vision for your community and something that you want so badly. And so I could see how it could easily, it could be easy to take those no's as something that's personal when it's such a personal project. So that's a great thing to keep in mind, because I'm just thinking there may be people who are here with us tonight or who are watching online who maybe have, a dream or a vision that they've been wanting to bring to fruition. So these are some great takeaways, I hope, for them as well. It's such a wonderful story. Are there, so if people are wanting to get involved, where can they find you on social media or contact the organization, that sort of thing, if they'd like to learn more?
Sure. So our website is www.prestoncommunitygarden.org. We're on Facebook, and it's another Preston Community Garden somewhere, not in Illinois. But so ours is Preston Community Garden ESL for East St. Louis. So Preston Community Garden ESL. My email address is Patrice, PATRICE, at prestoncommunitygarden.org.
Great. I also, I know, well, first of all, before we get off is there anything else you'd like to share about the garden? Anything else anyone needs to know?
Um, you know what? It's just funny too that I have some girly girlfriends that don't like bugs, don't like being outside. And now it's hard for me to get them out the garden. So, like I said, gardening is something therapeutic to the soul, where you don't have to have a master's degree in gardening. It's something that um, anyone can really, once you do it with love, you kind of nurture the plants. But it's something that if you don't know, you can definitely learn.
That's great. and I love that you're providing the space for them too, because sometimes that's the difficulty too. It's you either don't have the space or it's just a little bit too much to dig up a corner of your yard. So to
Yeah.
go be able to do it somewhere else with other people and that support is great. I'm going to share some information on my screen in just a second. We've got a poster for an upcoming exhibit on your family. Would you like to talk a little bit about that, your family history in the area, and the I think you had asked us to share that, so I hope that's okay.
No worries. I think you all have been talking to my cousin Elise.
Gotcha.
So but I can share. I'm part of the family too, because
Wonderful.
so yeah, my family was the first Black construction company in Southern Illinois. So it was my dad, my grandfather, and my uncles. So they built probably half of East St. Louis. So the funeral home, the churches, the post office, a lot of the they built a lot of the just a lot of things in East St. Louis, the churches. But what is pretty extraordinary was their character. So their craftsmanship was like no other, but their character. So I hear stories even from some of the elders in East St. Louis. If someone didn't have the money, but they needed a roof or something done, as long as you brought them beer and chicken, they made sure that the work is done. And some of the buildings they might have started, but the community came together to finish. So they also taught other people in East St. Louis the trade, which of course is a life skill. And I get people who say, you know what, if it wasn't for your dad, your brothers, and your uncle, I would never have went into construction.
That's wonderful. So yes, there is an exhibit coming up at East St. Louis Senior High School on June 4th. And so we wanted to share that. And I love, I feel like this is, it's very clear that the Preston family passed those values down as well, with your work with the community garden as well. So oops, sorry, I'm trying to stop sharing. One day we're gonna be able to do all these things smoothly. So thanks for sharing that. So I think, let's see if we've got any questions. Yeah, well, one person actually did just ask, what values did your father pass on to you, and have you been able to put into the garden? Any more you want to share about that?
My father he was amazing. And he was, I took his death pretty hard because, like I mentioned, I was the only child, but he was the first one I called when something went good, and the first person I called when something went bad. So not having him around was pretty hard at the beginning there. But he instilled amazing values, and to, you know what, you always treat people with dignity, because just always trying to do the right thing. And that's why I said a community garden felt right to my soul, and I think he would be pleased for his love of East St. Louis. And when I was kind of going through his things, it's not like he had a lot, but his checkbook and the signature line, everything was loan, loan, loan. And he knew that people weren't going to pay him back. But he was just one of those people that you could always count on to do the right thing.
Well, we really appreciate you sharing your story with us, both tonight and through the exhibit. It's been wonderful having you as part of this exhibit, and thanks for sharing about your family and your and this wonderful project. It's been great to be able to feature it. Thank you so much, Patrice, for being with us. Thank you to everyone else, and we hope you have a great night.
Thank you so much.